Hello, and thank you for joining us here at the Bramble Patch today. My name is Wendy, and on technicals we've got Alicia. If you like to join us for the tutorials, remember you can subscribe by clicking the button. It's free subscription, and then you'll be able to watch all the different tutorials that we do here. Also on the Bramble Patch webpage now, you can see, if you go down the left-hand side of the column, at the bottom you've got demos, and listed all the way down there are all the different tutorials that we've actually done in the previous months, and the link to them is just to the right-hand side. So if you click the links, and it will take you directly to the tutorial that you would like to watch. I'd like to say thank you for the photographs that we've been sent for some of the work that you've done. It's really inspiring to see how you're enjoying doing some of the new techniques that we're showing you, whether you're buying fabric for it or whether you're using things out of your stash or your scrap bag. So thank you for that, and please do keep the photographs coming. We love seeing them, and we do try to respond to all the emails or messages that we get. So today we're going to be looking at how to do the flying geese block. Behind me you can see this actually quilt here is a sampler quilt. This is the first sampler quilt that I did when I started teaching the classes here at the Bramble Patch. And we go right from the very, very beginning when we start to do the classes. Anybody that joins, we teach you right from using your equipment safely and how to give you confidence in getting accurate cutting. So these are some of the blocks that I teach, and then you can put them together actually into a quilt alongside what all the other tutors actually do as well. So I'm not the only tutor that does this. There's lots of other tutors that actually come here and do it as well. So today we're going to be looking at the flying geese, and here you can see the block, and you can do lots of different arrangements. So the technique I'm going to show you today, I find the most accurate way of doing flying geese. There are several different ways, and none of them are wrong. It's just that this is my preferred best method, because I find that the students actually achieve things a lot easier and a lot more accurately doing this. So when we do it the particular way I'm going to show you today, we actually make 4 blocks at a time. So here we go. So I've got them here, and you can see here I've got the white in the larger triangle, but you can also turn it around and do it the opposite way around. So these are just a few samples that I use when I'm actually teaching in classes. So we'll just move those out of the way, and then we'll take a look at how this technique is done. Now, the sizes that I'm going to be quoting you today, if you want to make it the exact size without trimming, okay, you can always round the sizes up a little bit, and that means you would have to trim it afterwards. But we're going to be working to make it a perfect size. So if you want to make, for instance, a finished piece that measures 3 by 6 inches, so that's finished. So when you make it, it will be 3.5 by 6.5, because that will include your seam allowance, okay? So if we want to make it 6.5 by 3.5, we're going to make 4 at a time. So what we're going to do, we're going to take a piece of fabric, and we are going to add 1¼ inches on. If you add 1¼ inches to the size that you want it to be, this will actually add all your seam allowances and everything on for you. Okay, so I'm going to be working with a piece 7¼ inches in size. So all I need is one piece of fabric measuring 7¼ inches square. then what we need, oh, I've lost my piece of paper. I did have another piece, but it's gone walkabout, don't worry about it. You need 4 squares, and these are cut at 3 7/8. Oh, here they are, look, I've got the wrong one. There we go, I knew I had it. So these are cut 3 7/8 square, and you need 4 of those. And this is, like I say, going to make us 4 blocks. So I'm just going to pop those to one side. So first of all, what we're going to do is we're going to take the squares that are 3 7/8, and we're going to turn them so we've got the wrong side facing uppermost. And what we're going to do then is take a pen and a ruler. Now I use, when I'm doing it on camera, I actually use a biro because I find it shows up better for you to be able to see. I have tried using some fabric markers, but it doesn't tend to come out very well the way we film, because in actual fact we don't have cameras as such. We tend to use iPad and just a screen. We don't, or sometimes we have a phone. We don't use cameras. So this is why we have to film things in a certain way to try and enable you to actually see things nice and clearly. Now, as you can see, I want to draw a diagonal line on this. I'm not going to start right at the very corner, because if I do, it might pull that corner down. I like to start a little way down and go up and then back down. It stops all that puckering at that top edge. And also remember, if you ever use one of your quilting rulers like I'm using here, do remember just to freshen the edges of your rulers up with either cotton wool and water, or a little bit of soapy water, or just a wet wipe. I tend to use wet wipes because it just removes any residue left just on this edge, because we wouldn't want to transfer any of that back onto any of our fabrics. So that has actually allowed me to draw those lines for you. So I'm going to set 2 of those squares to one side for now, and then I'm going to take my 7 1/4 inch square, and I'm going to lay that on my cutting board facing right side up. I'm then going to take my first square, and I'm putting fabrics right sides together, and I'm going to lay that so it just sits nicely in the corner with the diagonal line pointing towards the opposite side. I'm going to take my second piece of fabric, and I'm also going to sit that in the bottom right hand corner. So I've got top left hand and bottom right hand. And when you sit this in there, you will see that the diagonal line is literally continuous. It goes right the way through. I just hold that there. This camera should be able to pick it up. Okay. Now, it is a good idea to actually pop a couple of pins in this. And I'm actually going to pin this, and you'll see why I'm pinning it this way in a moment. When you place your pins in, don't place your pins too close to your drawn line, because we don't want them to get in the way of the actual foot of the sewing machine. So just sit them towards the outer side, so they're not going to get caught in any way. Now, as you can see, I've pinned these so the pin heads are towards me. Because I laid the top left-hand corner first, I've got a little overlap here from this side. So when I sew, I don't want to sew from this end coming down, because it could catch this. So I've pinned with my pins going towards that way. So now, if I actually rotate this round, it means I can sew down here and nothing's going to get caught. It's just going to transfer and sew straight onto my second square without causing any ripples or puckering or anything like that. So what I'm going to do now, I'm actually going to take this to the sewing machine, and I'm going to put the edge of my foot on my drawn line, and I'm going to sew 1/4 inch all the way down one side, and then I'll come across the bottom here, just across here, and then back down this side. Okay, so let's take it to the sewing machine and do that. Just move my iron out of the way. It's just these little tips that actually, once you start to put things together, really do actually help. Oops. So I'm just placing the edge, the right-hand side of my foot on the sewing machine against the drawn line on the fabric, and I'm just letting it feed through itself. I'm not having to really guide it, it's just feeding through. The feed dogs are just carrying it through. And because I've put the pins far enough away from the drawn line, they're not getting in the way at all. Now I'm just going to pull that around and pivot it around, and actually now, once again, place the edge of the foot on the drawn line again. Now, if you want to, you could actually take that out completely and cut your thread. It's whatever works for you the best. I find just to do a loop works for me. Just make sure that when you transfer from that first diamond coming back up, nothing goes amiss, you don't catch anything. But because I've sewed it on the other side, it was nice and steady. So I'm just going to nip that off there. There we go. And there we go. So now I'm going to remove my pins. And hopefully you can now see the stitch lines that I've done 1/4 inch away from the drawn line. This does look a little bit odd when you're doing it, but trust me, it works really, really well. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take my ruler and my rotary cutter, and I'm going to place my ruler on my drawn line. So I'm going from one corner to the other. So I'm actually going to cut on the drawn line that I put on a few minutes ago. Right way up. Now I'm just going to set that one to one side for a minute. Now, if I pull this over here, I really like these wall mats. I've got one at home, I use it all the time. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to set that seam, and you can see a little tiny crossover here, and this should be what's happening. So what I'm going to do now, because this is the one that's laying on the top, I'm just going to actually roll that one back first, and then I'll roll the other one back. I like to do it in the way that it happens, because otherwise you just start twisting it a little bit. So I'm just going to give that a nice little press, like so. And this is now what your block looks like. So we're going to take another one of the squares. If you remember, we set 2 squares to the side. We cut 4, we've used 2 already, we've got 2 spare. So I'm just going to take one of those squares now, and I'm going to place it in the corner of the blue fabric. And this should be sticking over the top there. That is what's supposed to be happening. Okay. So once again, I'm going to pop a couple of pins in there. And I'm not going to place them too close to that drawn line. Like so. So once again now, I'm going to sew 1/4 inch away on this side and again on the other side. It's very effective actually how this works. It's very clever this way. I've tried lots of different ways, but I keep going back to this way. I just find it far more accurate than any of the other ways, quite honestly. But it is personal choice. It's always worth giving different techniques a go and different methods to see what works best for you. You know, what works for one person doesn't necessarily mean that it's the best way for everyone. Just going to pull that round and situate the right hand side of the foot on that drawn line, and once again I'm going to sew up there. Like so. So just knit that little bit of thread off there, loop. So I'm going to remove the pins, and once again now I'm going to cut on that drawn line. Straight up on that drawn line. I'll flip this one over on here for now, so I'm removing that. So once again now, I'm just going to set that seam, roll that one back, and exactly the same with this one. And as you can see, we have two perfect blocks. And here is where you're looking, because you need to have this 1/4 inch here, because this gives you your seam allowance when you're going to join it to your next block. Okay, so at the end you'll just need to nip off these little ears here, but that now is the exact size ready to go into a block. So I'll just quickly do this other one. So roll this one back. So this time I've got this one on the top. Press that back like so. I've already got the drawn line on here because I drew them all at the same time. I do tend to just draw them all together. It just means that you can just pick up the parts that you want and just go straight away. It saves coming to and fro-ing all the while, to be honest. Just pop a couple of pins in there just to hold it in position. I mean, I actually did some very, very large flying geese in a quilt a few years ago. And I did it all in autumnal colours, and it looked absolutely gorgeous. So it's something that makes beautiful borders on quilts. Really, really nice, and so quick. And it was when I did that quilt that I discovered this particular technique, and I haven't looked back since, quite honestly. You can do a whole quilt of flying geese. I see quite a lot of people using them to actually construct bags with. So good. Just take this one here. Knit that on. There, like so. There we go. Flip the board over. I'm cutting it on that line once again. Turn that over. Once again, we've got that perfect 1/4 inch at the top there, so that when it's joined to its next block, you're not going to lose any points. So let me take here and I can just show you. There we go. You've got 4 blocks that have gone together really, really quickly. There we go. And there's lots and lots of different layouts that you can actually do. So on this one, I've got, where's my purple ones gone? Although these are different fabrics, you can do all sorts with them. So how have I got that one laid out? I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. And where does this one go? This one looks like it might go here. And even though these are completely different colorways, do you know what? It still works. It really, really does. So look how that would look. I hold it over to the bigger camera. I'm hoping that that would pick it up. How effective is that? And these are just scraps of fabric, you know, so it just shows you how good they can be. And I mean, to do a border on a quilt, again, would look fabulous. They make fabulous borders. My daughter has used this a lot in her quilts to make borders, because of, if you want to upsize a quilt and you've got some fabrics left over, it's a really, really good way of actually making it work for you. So you can see, and that's just interchanging them just with a few that I've got there. So that is my preferred method of making the flying geese block. It's worth having a go. Those of you that I know, some of you have started to make some of the blocks up, the different techniques I've shown you how to do out of your scraps. This is another one that you can add into the sampler quilt if you have decided to go along and actually do that. And you can see that it goes along with some of the other blocks that I've actually done with you. So that's the flying geese block. Thank you for joining us today and hope to see you again next week. Bye-bye for now.